Hey guys, Dr. Rusty Bolt back here with another banger. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, but this is going to be a tutorial on how to build a cheap, do-it-yourself inline brake lever system for any kind of application, for really any kind of cable. And it's completely mechanical, completely customizable, and very, very inexpensive to make. So let's get started. First, I have this chrome brake lever down here, which I originally ran to a brake cable that I made myself down there where my finger's pointing. And I wanted to add an inline position up here for when I'm coasting. I wanted to be able to use the throttle and kind of just chill. So here's my second one connected up here. And these are both, spare brake levers that I had laying around, and really they can be gotten very cheaply by just, parting off abandoned bikes or going on Facebook Marketplace. And, people will give away free bikes, and usually these are still in decent condition even if the bike is trashed. So let me give a demonstration. So this lever down here controls the throttle, which you can see right over there, and it retracts just fine. This new one up here does the same exact thing and retracts nicely. So essentially this works perfectly mechanically. So let's actually see how I did it and how you can do it too. Now, as I mentioned before, there's no specialty items that are going to cost you a fortune or are going to have, a really hassly install. The only item that most people do not have on them that I'm using in this DIY jerry rig here are these little mechanical nipples right here for cables. And if you take a look at them, one side has a threaded hole, and this hole right here is simply for the brake cable to go through. And when you screw that little worm screw in, it actually, it provides a really nice stopping force. I was surprised at the amount of stopping force it actually does provide. And a small pack like this can be gotten for really under $10 on Amazon. And the quality of these things are great, and they you get a decent bit for a pretty penny. I'm sorry, for not a pretty penny. So let's look at actually how I did this, and I will explain what you need to do it as well. So the only tools that I used to create this inline brake lever system was a drill with a nominally sized drill bit, which I'm sure most people have, and that was actually it. There is one more little item here that will probably be helpful. Is something that looks like this. I didn't actually purchase these. I parted these off abandoned bikes, but I'm sure this could be bought for pennies on the dollar as well, and maybe even made. This is an M6 thread, by the way, M6 screw. But it could be whatever you want, as long as you fasten it correctly. So, on our first brake lever, down here, what I've done is drilled a hole with a 13/64 bit, I believe. So that's around 5 millimeters. And I'm actually such a jerry rigger that I don't have metric taps. So how did I thread this hole? Well, I just took another M6 screw and kind of worked it in there. Work it in, work it back out a little bit, and do that for a little while. Put some used engine oil in that hole, and it will actually create decent threads for this to screw into. I also did file the sides of this off. It was circular before, but I wanted to be able to grab it with a tool. So I actually filed them down to 8 millimeters from flat end to flat end, and that will actually fit an M6 wrench, I believe, and I don't actually have an M6 wrench, but when I do get one, then you will be able to use that tool on there. The cable end on this could be one of these mechanical nipples as well, but I just cut a cable that had a little 3mm nipple on the end of it, and that's soldered on, so I don't have to worry about that coming off ever. This one right here, this mechanical nipple, is optional. It just prevents the cable from, going in and out when you use this bottom lever down here. And this second nipple right here is technically optional, but it's actually recommended, because the way that I have this cable running up here, it's really only zip tied right here, and this can come out. So the reason I have this little mechanical nipple right there is so when I use the top lever, if this cable were to ever come loose, this nipple would automatically push it back into position. And you can see actually I do have another mechanical nipple in there to actually run to my brake line, because I do not have soldering tools. I'm a jerry rigger. And after that comes up, by the way, this cable can be made pretty easily, cut down using an existing one, again, parted off abandoned bikes. We come up to the top here, and this is a standard brake lever. But the thing that I did do, and this is the important step, although it's technically not needed, if you leave this end of the cable open and then put a mechanical nipple on afterwards to seal it up, is if we look from the top here, you'll notice that this cable actually comes through the back of the lever. And there is a reason I did that. It's kind of hard to see the hole, but I did drill it from the inside of here and out. The reason I did that is so you can slide the cable into the other mechanical nipple that you might be able to see in there. Yeah, it's right there. So you actually slide the cable up through that nipple and then have it come out the hole. And it's actually not that hard to get it right. It takes, maybe a minute or so, but then, it comes through with, little force. And then you screw that mechanical nipple down, and you now have cable left over, which you can snip, or I choose to leave it in case I want to reorient this in the future. And actually, you could drill another hole through here to the other end, and then you could wrap this cable through that hole, and it would actually, it would not interfere in any way. Although this cable really does not interfere with anything the way it is. It kind of just looks a little funny. And that's about it, actually. One thing to note is, if you can, try to find brake levers with this little worm screw right here. What that worm screw does, and they're usually Allen keys, is it actually allows you to have a home position, a fixed home position on any of your brake levers. So the reason that I choose to do that is because my dual brake lever setup here, one for the brakes on the bike and the other for the throttle cable, I don't really want them to be at the same height. I'd like to be able to grab them with a finger and not have to worry about accidentally grabbing both of them. And that same concept applies to using your inline brake levers here. You can have a home position at the very bottom here, so you know that you've maxed the throttle out when you bottom the top lever on the grips or whatever situation you have, and through eyeing it and calibration or whatever, you can pretty accurately actually do this home position right here. Although it looks like mine's a little off, but again, I'd have to put the engine on and actually see where it lines up. But I'm not at that stage yet. This does work for any kind of cable setup, so you could probably do something similar on a dirt bike if you really wanted to. Although, a bicycle is probably more appropriate. And yeah, really any kind of lever that you can drill into to put that, the little thing that I showed here, or whatever you can think of, you can do this with. You can use plastic brake levers, although I kind of like the metal ones because I feel that they hold up better, you know, to the test of time. Most of the time they're aluminum, and it's super easy to work with aluminum. If you're trying to screw a jerry rig, you know, tap a hole and then put threads on a metal one other than aluminum, that's a lot harder. Like steel, you might run into some trouble. So that's my video, and again, I'll do another quick demonstration of how it works. Just like that, and then the top one actually moves both. That really is the simplest way to do it if you want to avoid having to buy some kind of weird splitter. And again, this is completely serviceable, completely customizable. If I wanted to take all of this off, all I would need is a couple Allen keys. So actually, this is the tool that I like to carry with me on rides. And a little screwdriver for those mechanical nipples. If you had an M5 wrench too, or you know, metric wrenches, you could use those too for anything else. But I choose to carry some vice grips around because one size fits all, really. So hopefully this tutorial was helpful. Unfortunately, I cannot show the process of me doing it, but I have highlighted everything that you do need to do it. So, you know, if you're kind of a little handy mechanically and you have a few tools laying around, you can do the same thing here. So the next step is to do the exact same thing on the other side and probably hook that up to a brake lever. All right, that's it.